Rachel Simon, I got
Hey,
to tell you,
Megan.
so it is 7:36 my time, and I am typically in my house coat in a hot 20 minutes, but instead I was so excited to have this conversation with you. Thank you for being here.
Well, you are welcome. And this is the best part of my day. I had a long
Mm.
day at work as well. And what got me through my tough day was knowing that I was going to get to chat with you at 6:36 my time. So I'm on Central Time. So we mutual gratitude and admiration. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Don't you love that? How even if you have anxiety about the thing, whether that's signing up for the networking event or going to even to dinner with friends, and then you're tired and you're like, I don't want to go, but you do it anyway, the high you feel on the other end of that. Does that
Yes.
hit? Does that relate to you? Do you get that?
Yes,
Mm.
yes. I heard a saying recently that I've adapted for my own. So I wish I knew who to attribute it to. But they were talking about exercise, and they
Mm.
said exercise is hard, being out of shape is hard. Choose your hard, and that really
Oh,
resonated me when I think about networking. That networking is hard, feeling isolated and lonely is hard. Choose your hard. And
oh.
so, isn't that so good? And so, I try to think about that as a massive introvert who values relationships, but it is hard. It's hard to make connections. It's hard to go up to people and start those relationships. I've cracked the code on it, so I know we're going to unpack some of that. But it's hard. But the other hard is worse of being lonely and feeling disconnected. So that's what gets me through.
Oh God, girl, are we even 2 minutes into this and you're already taking me to church? I'm sitting over here like, tell me more, Rachel, tell me more. So, and I love how you talked about the book. For those of you not watching us on YouTube, I'm holding up this beautiful book. Beautiful book. I was just telling Rachel right before we hit record that regardless of where you are in your career journey, her words around relationships at work, how to network within your company to build your tribe and advocates in this digital world, that I feel that we all have social anxiety after what we've been through. What a gift it is. And Rachel, I want to ask you, God, I have so many questions I want to ask you. But first, what gave you the courage to put these words out into the world? Because you were sharing this internally for years. Like,
Yes.
what gave you the courage to put it into the world?
Yes. Well, first, what a great wing woman you are of holding
Mm.
up the book and promoting it. So I'm going to promote the book a lot during our time together because 100% of the profits go to charity. 100% of the
Mm.
profits go to United Way. So if you're on the fence at the end of this podcast about getting the book or not for your own development, remember that the profits go to charity. And that's going to be part of the story that I tell here to answer your question
Wow.
about the courage. So I'm an executive with AT&T, and
Mm-hmm.
I have been there for 30 years. That's really hard to believe because when I joined right outside of college in 1994, wow, 2024 seemed so far away, and here we are. So it's been 30 years, and I've had this amazing career. And one of my favorite things to do is to lead mentoring circles. If you're
Mm.
not familiar with a mentoring circle, it's, a group of 8, 10, 12 people, men, women, depending on the circle, to talk about topics, resume writing, interviewing skills, personal branding, all of those kind of things. And about 10 years ago, one of my circles, I asked them, what do you want to hear about? And they said, will you teach us how to network? And I quickly said no because I didn't know what I was going to say. I'm like, I don't know. I'm an introvert. I don't know how to teach you how to network. And they were very persistent. They kept needling me the whole year long. Oh, this would be the best circle. If only you would teach us how to network. You're really good at relationships, Rachel. Will you teach us? And so I was like, okay, they're really good. I gotta get them off my back. So I sat down in a quiet place and I made a list of tips on how I form relationships
Mm.
because it's true. I am really good at relationships. If you use the word networking, I feel cold and clammy. But if you use the
Mm-hmm.
word relationships, I feel warm and cozy. And so I made a list of the ways that I network. And it turned out pretty good because I paired each of my tips with a real email that I've either sent to someone or they've sent to me. So that way it completely demystified networking and showed just
Mm.
how easy it is. And so I gave this speech to my mentoring circle. And if it's possible for an unrecorded speech to go viral, that's exactly what happened. So over the last 10 years, I am the viral part of it, that I give this presentation all the time within my company, and it's very popular. And every time I do the presentation, someone says, you should write a book. And so I did. And I actually finished it 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago. Oh my goodness. I finished it during COVID, and now we're at the 4 year anniversary. So I finished it 4 years ago. So this is getting to your question now about the courage.
Yeah.
Why did it take me so long to publish? Because I
Mhm.
was scared, right? I was
Mm.
scared, and I was scared for a couple of reasons. The first is that whole imposter syndrome that we all, know about, right? Who am I to be giving advice? Who am I to be teaching about this? Is this even valid, right? That was the first reason. The second reason, and maybe some of the women that are listening to this will resonate. I just didn't want anyone to think I didn't have my eye on my job. I've got this big job,
Mm.
and oh, what is she doing that she has time to write, and she has time to do this. And after talking to my mentors and my leaders, everybody said, why would anybody think that about you, Rachel? So I got over that one. And the third hurdle for me was the money, that it
Mhm.
feels weird to be a vice president and then ask people for $29. And then
Mhm.
that's when I realized I believe so much in this message. I've cracked the code on teaching people how not to be lonely, teaching people how to form relationships. I believe so much in this message, I'm going to give away all the profits.
Mm.
And so once all those things came together, my own confidence, my leaders telling me, we know that you have your eye on your job, Rachel, and then what to do with the profits. Once it all came together, my husband teases me that I ran out of reasons to not publish. He's like, what are you going to come up with next? And so I made the big decision to publish. And I'm so glad I did, because the message has really, really resonated with men and women alike, but really with women, that it gives them a blueprint on how to form these relationships, taps into our innate skills of being warm and genuine. And so it took a lot of courage, but I'm glad I got there.
Rachel, I love the fact that you talked about the gremlin inside your brain that talked about, well, who am I to share this? Like, I don't,
Yes.
the fear that comes, and especially being vulnerable, it's difficult. We try to make it sound easy with a hashtag, but damn, it's hard. What would your advice be to the woman listening that is where you were, has something to share, and is unsure of herself, tries to talk herself out of it? What's one micro step, one tangible tool, one thing that she can use to break through that?
Hmm. It, Gosh, it's such a good question, Megan. And I could talk in platitudes and I could say, oh, don't be afraid, and just do it.
Mm.
But if I was going to give something tactical, I would say start small. Start
Mm.
small. That if you feel like you have something to say, share it with two of your colleagues. Don't feel like you have to get on a big stage. Don't feel like you have to
Yeah.
write a book. Share it with two people. Share it with five people. Get comfortable raising your opinion in a meeting. Get comfortable sharing with your supervisor. Hey, I have these ideas. I'd like to pursue it. So I would say start small, because confidence breeds confidence. Um,
Mm.
I I mentioned these mentoring circles.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't lead a mentoring circle. I've already said I've been here 30 years. I didn't lead a mentoring circle until halfway through my career, because I didn't think I had anything to say, right? Who am I? Who am I to be
Mm.
giving advice? And then once I
Yeah.
started with my first one, it's like, I think I do have something to say. And I say this humbly, but I'm a sought after mentoring circle leader
Mm-hmm.
because of what I have to say. But if I hadn't started small, I didn't aim to get on a big stage. I just aimed to affect and influence 10 people. And that gave me the confidence then to do more.
As you're talking about sharing with a small, comfortable group, whether that's internally or externally, but just the courage to share, it just made me think, Rachel, about the gift in my career journey of really, and I don't even think I was aware, but putting myself in rooms with women that pulled up a mirror to see things in me that I couldn't see in myself. And I think what a
Yes.
gift that is when you find those women, it can be men too, but when you find those
Yes.
people that can pull things out of you, that you can't see in yourself. And Rachel, that leads me to my next question. For the woman listening that is saying, I don't have that person. I don't have that tribe. I was kind of brought on virtually. I'm navigating blind here. I'm hungry for a tribe. I don't know where to start. What would you recommend?
Yeah, so people ask me all the time, how do I get a mentor?
Yeah.
How do I get a mentor? And here is something that may be a newsflash to some people. You can't just go out and get a mentor. You can't put on your to-do list. If only it was that easy. Tuesday at 10 a.m., get a mentor. It doesn't work that way. Instead, how my most fulfilling mentoring relationships have happened on both sides of the coin, by the way, mentee and mentor, the way that those have happened is organically.
Mm,
What does that look like? It's reaching out to someone. Gosh, we're in this meeting every Thursday at 10 a.m. and you say the wisest things. I love your insights. Can we get a cup of coffee one day?
mm,
And then you have a good coffee, and then you say, I loved this. Can we do this again in 12 weeks? Can we do this once a quarter? And that's how you grow the relationship. You reach out to someone. I saw your panel and what you said really spoke to me. Can we get lunch one day? Can I get 15 minutes of your time? Um, it's scary. Let me validate what everybody's thinking right now. That's scary to do that.
mm-hmm,
But I always encourage everyone to think about how would you feel if you got that
mm.
kind of email? How would you feel if someone sent you a note to say, we're on this call every Thursday at 10 a.m. and what you say is so insightful. Can I pick your brain? Oh, wow. You think I'm insightful? Of course. So when you think about it from the opposite side, it gives you so much more courage to reach out. And so when you're looking for those relationships, and here I go plugging the book, Megan,
Yeah,
20
girl.
ideas on how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people that you work around, people that you used to work with, so many ideas on how to reach out, what to say, but taking that step to send a note. Email is my preferred mode of communication, but the goal is to get a face-to-face meeting.
Mm.
So I send an email, but then I say, can we get coffee? Can we get lunch? Can we do a virtual Zoom? Whatever the case may be.
I love so much. I wrote this down as you were talking because there's such authenticity in how you ask and how it was like unscripted conversation. I'm
Yeah.
not I feel that our world, even if we're not aware of it, can sort of have you in this what's in it for me mentality where you just reach out to people when you have asks.
Yes, it's the
Where-
worst. It's the worst. It's the worst. And I can sense those people coming a mile away. The people that get on my calendar and say, you know, what can you do for me, Rachel? Oh, I don't have time for people like that. What
Yeah.
I do have time for is the people where it's a reciprocal relationship. I want to inspire, but I want to be inspired. I want to be
Yes.
interested in what you're saying, but I also want to be interesting. It has to be reciprocal about both people getting something out of the relationship. Even with 30 years of working, I don't want to just be the wise Yoda on the hill giving advice. I want to hear what you have to say too. I want it to be a reciprocal conversation and dialogue.
Oh, I love that. And the other thing I said that you said that really spoke to me and authentically is when you hear someone say something that you think, "Oh, I like that," or "That was smart," or "That was wise," to lean into it and tell them and then
That's
get
right.
in a room with that person. Like that, our curiosity is such a beautiful thing that I don't
That's
think we
right.
really give enough credit to. Would you agree?
Well, do you know who's really good at this?
Ooh.
You.
Oh,
You
really?
are really good at this, Megan. How did we meet? How did we meet? Somehow we got connected on LinkedIn, and you reached out to me on LinkedIn with the most
Yeah.
thoughtful and encouraging video. I've never gotten that before. You know, I get lots of direct messages in LinkedIn. You sent me the most encouraging video, short, you know, just telling me how much, you know, my post resonated with you, and can we chat one day? And then we set up a virtual coffee, and then that led to this podcast. We formed a relationship, right? But how do
Yeah.
you think I felt getting your note? It wasn't an inconvenience. Women think, oh, I can't reach out. I'm going to inconvenience them, right? It
Wow.
wasn't an inconvenience. It wasn't presumptive. It wasn't manipulative. It was the opposite, Megan, the way you did it. You made me feel good. You made me feel encouraged. You made me feel lifted up. And that's how relationships need to start in order to be sustained.
Mm. Oh my God, I love you so much. Yes. Yes, yes. And you know what's so funny, Rachel? This is exactly to your point with these beautiful words, the power of our relationships. I can't remember what day it is half the time, but I remember reading your words on LinkedIn. And I remember stopping in my tracks and thinking to myself, she is a woman I have to get to know. I love the words she wrote. I can feel that it's from an authentic place, from a beautiful spirit, and I can feel her energy. And I love the work that she's doing. And I have to let her know.
Okay, and so let's double click on that for a second because I think it might be
Yeah.
helpful to the audience. Do you know what I think I said that resonated with you? I
What?
was vulnerable. I was vulnerable. That the post that really got your attention is I did a post like the day before my book launched, and I said how scared I was, and I said
Mm,
how nervous I was, and I was vulnerable. And I think that we need more of that to talk about being scared and talk about being vulnerable because other people they make it look so easy and then we think what's wrong with me right well
yes.
what's wrong with me that I have anxiety over this but when we normalize being scared and we normalize being anxious, I think it not only makes us relatable, but then again, it leads us to these authentic relationships where people can relate.
So, Rachel, I love this so much because I look back on my corporate career. I keep going back to this because reflection is such a beautiful gift. And I was so focused on the task list. Achiever, someone striving for the validation, someone to say, I'll do it. I was so focused on the task list that, Rachel, I worked with people for 10 years and I never knew who they were as humans
Mm,
because
mm,
I was so focused on the task.
mhm,
And
mhm.
I wasn't vulnerable with myself. I couldn't be vulnerable in the rooms I was in. I didn't know how. So, your advice for the person listening that thinks, "Oh my God, I don't even know how to be vulnerable." How uh, how do you even start if you've never been really taught how?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
I think I would give the same advice that I gave to one of the previous questions of start small. Start
Mm,
small. That if you go to lunch with someone and you just lay out your whole life story, ooh, that could be a little ooh, that could be a little much. Could be a little much for the receiver and for you giving it. But if you invite someone to lunch and you're talking about your family and you're talking about your kids, you know what we mostly say is, "Oh, everything's great. Everything's great." But if you just drop a little nugget of, "I'm in a really hard season right now,"
mm,
and just explain a little bit of that, and I bet that that person would reciprocate. I'm in a
yeah,
hard season too, right?
yeah.
And so I would say start small. Don't feel like you have to reveal everything. There's certain things that will never be revealed at work. That's things you want to compartmentalize for people outside the workplace. But if you start small by sharing, I think you'd be surprised at how it'd be reciprocated.
Mm, I love that. Rachel, I was just thinking about your beautiful nugget that you gave us about reaching out on for the unscripted conversation
Yeah.
with the coffee. And then what does follow up look like from that? I feel like that's something that is missing for so many of us is the lack of follow up.
Yes, yes. And the first thing I would say is you need to read the room, so to say, to know
Mm,
is this a one and done or is
mm-hmm.
this a meaningful connection? Do you know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean when I say one and
Yes.
done? That sometimes I go to lunch with someone and we're talking, talking, talking. Oh, this is amazing. Let's do this again in a couple months. And then sometimes I go to lunch with someone and I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, oh my God, it's only been 5 minutes. How am I going to keep
Yes.
how am I going to keep the conversation going? And
Yes.
that's okay. I am not everyone's cup of tea. Everyone is not my cup of tea. Everybody, even I, the networking queen, right? Even I, everybody that I meet is not going to be a true meaningful connection. And so that's the first thing is to ask yourself, is this a meaningful connection and do I want to sustain it? And if the answer is yes, then I have lots of ideas. The first is to send a thank you note.
Mm,
And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got when you send a thank you note, make sure it's personal enough that you can't just swap in and out somebody else's name. So it
mm-hmm.
wouldn't be Megan, thank you for lunch. It would be Megan, thank you so much for our conversation about lunch. Here are the three things I got out of it. Right. So make it personal. So send a thank you note and say, hey, I would love to do this again, in April, whatever the case may be. And if so, make a note on your calendar when you're going to do that. But other ways to keep in touch very effectively is to say, I saw this and I thought of you. I read this
Mm.
article and it reminded me of you. I listened to this podcast. Oh, you should listen to Megan. She's amazing. This made me think about you.
Mhm.
And if you can tie it back to a conversation, hey, remember we went to lunch and we talked about work-life balance? I saw this TED Talk and I thought that you'd really like it. And let's go to lunch and talk about it. So
Yeah.
it's a good way to not only show you were listening, but then also get that next get coffee, get that next lunch.
Oh my God, I love that. And
Yeah.
apparently Stella did too. I don't know if you hear the dog barking in the
I do
background,
not hear the dog
but
barking.
she was apparently Stella really liked that as well. You know what I love? As you were talking, I had to write this down because that spoke to me so much. The when you think of someone to reach out. So one of the things, Rachel, that I've been very intentional on as of late is creating these micro moments of silence. And here's what I mean by that.
Mm,
Taking the dog for a 15-minute walk without my phone.
mhm.
Getting ready in the morning. Sometimes I'll listen to a podcast,
Yeah.
or sometimes I'll just listen in silence, see what comes, or grabbing my coffee in silence, or 15 minutes to eat something in silence and just see what comes up, and then reach out to anyone that comes to mind or any ideas that come to mind. And it's been amazing. Do you have any tools or tricks or hacks or anything that you do to create some space for some white noise, for some ideas, or to reach out to someone when you think of them?
Probably the opposite way of what you're saying. So
Yeah.
it's my natural tendency to want that alone time. I'm a natural introvert. And so I actually have to do the opposite, that as I'm driving to work, I have to say, all right, who are two people I'm going to reach out to today? Who is one person from a previous job? I might have moved on, they may have moved on, but who's one person that I could reach out to today to make their day, I bet, to reach out and see how they're doing. So I think that my tendencies are a little bit opposite of yours. Instead of carving time for
Yeah.
self-care and silence, my self-care, because I know, remember, choose your hard.
Yep.
Relationships are important to me. So if I know that that's important to me, I choose my hard and I kind of make a plan for what I'm going to do.
I love that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that, because in our, again, digital world that throws these keywords and these
Yeah.
ideas at you, you think that it needs to look a certain way, and each person
It
knows them.
doesn't.
Yes, it
It
doesn't need
doesn't.
to look the same for you that it does for everyone else. Like,
Well, that's exactly right. And there's 1,000 ways to reach out to somebody. I mean, of course, there's the medium ways. There's, a phone call, a text, in person. And there's like good, better, best strategies. That good is getting a text from someone saying, I thought about you, wanted to say hi, but you can only say so much in text.
yep.
But best would be let's get together, let's go for a walk, let's get coffee, right? So but only you know your good, better, best. You know what is the right medium that will fill your cup, so to say. And then there's also 1,000 ways to reach out. It could be dropping off a cupcake for somebody. It could
Mm.
be sending a handwritten note. It could be sending a note to their supervisor and copying them. There's a million ways to make people feel good and to establish that relationship.
I love that. I love that. Rachel, I want to ask you, I was thinking about this today and I wanted to ask this to you. So, the power of the ask. Sometimes I think
Yeah.
it's so hard because I don't think we know what we want. That's the most difficult question to ask. And I was in a room a couple weeks ago and this gentleman got up and he shared this story about how this woman on his team left. And he was so surprised. She was like the superstar. And
Mhm.
when he finally talked to her afterwards, she said, "Well, you didn't give me that promotion." And he said, "I didn't even know you wanted it."
Mm,
And we are quick to make assumptions. We are quick to not put out the ask. And
yes.
what's your advice to someone listening that might be in a position where they want to ask, they don't know how, or maybe they're hungry for the next thing, but they don't know what that looks like? Can they
Yeah,
start to build
I
a tribe? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a similar story as a supervisor that happened to me. That this was many years ago, but one of my top rated employees, she was so great, she quit. And when she quit, she said, Rachel, I just can't do it anymore. I can't do the commute and trying to balance it with my kids. And I was so sad that she didn't talk to me. I was like, I didn't
Yeah.
even know these were issues, right? And so I had to do a lot of reflection of what kind of a leader am I? What kind of a supervisor that shouldn't feel comfortable? And I made a lot of changes in my style after that. It taught me a lot.
Mm.
Um, but if you don't have that relationship with your supervisor, who it is, who, fill in the blank of who this, situation is, ask for it, right? Ask for it. And tell the person ahead of time that you want to talk about something. Say, hey, I would love to, carve out time next Tuesday. I have something that's really weighing on my mind and want to get your thoughts. Can we schedule some time? And so asking for it, not putting them on the spot. The same thing goes with feedback, by the way. Um, Sometimes people say, Rachel, I just don't get good feedback from my supervisor. And my best advice is to give them notice, because if you say in that meeting, hey, how am I doing? You know what you're going to get? Oh, great. Keep doing what you're
Yeah.
doing. Right. But if you say, hey, next Tuesday or in our next one on one next month, I would love to get some feedback. And then the other thing that I have felt helpful to me in my career is for me to start the conversation about feedback. Hey, here
Mm.
are some of the things I'm working on. What do you think I should work on? Because it kind of gives them permission to, okay, she's doing some reflection. She knows she's not perfect. And so that could be helpful too, for you to start the conversation if it's going to be a difficult conversation or something that you want their help on.
Mm. I love that.
Yeah,
I love the girl. I love the fact that you are giving us these tangible tools, these 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 tangible nuggets that are micro. Sometimes I think we think it needs to be these big, huge things, and it's
it's so true.
paralyzing.
It's so true. And can I add one more thing about the
Please.
feedback? If you're going to ask for feedback, do you know the only acceptable response is thank you, right? Right? If you're going to ask for feedback and then you're going to argue with them and tell them how they're wrong or they misunderstood, you're not going to get any more feedback ever again.
Or
But
then
if you
get pissed
say
off
thank
and
you,
not
and
even
now,
listen.
right, right. And so, yes, and I know this from experience. In some of my younger days, I would just feel so riled up because I'm like, no, that's not how it went down, but that's how they perceived it went down. So I need to listen to the feedback and then make course corrections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask your advice on this.
Yeah.
We are in a very virtual world. We have been, and so much has changed. And the one thing I have heard universally, especially from folks that were maybe brought onto an organization virtually,
Mhm.
and if they go into the office or if they meet people at trainings or meetings or conferences, it just seems big and large, or people are holed up in their offices and on screens anyway. And it feels
Yeah.
sort of like there's this social anxiety, and I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
How would you recommend to navigate through that?
So, for 26 of my 30 years working, I went into the office every single day. And every single day I would have lunch with someone, coffee with someone. That was just how I built relationships. And then when COVID hit, like many of your listeners, I was sent home to work and I was in a complete funk. I mean, of
Mm.
course, loved having no commute. And of course, I loved being in my yoga pants.
Yeah.
But I was in a funk. Like, I don't even know how to meet people anymore. I don't
Yep.
know how to network. And then I realized I could do virtual coffee. I decided I don't like
Mm.
doing virtual lunch because I don't like eating on camera, which is so weird because I'll eat with you 2 feet away across a table,
Yeah.
but I don't want to eat on camera. But doing virtual coffee, and by the way, I say virtual coffee, but could be a Topo Chico, could be water, fill in the blank. Um, but once I realized that I could network on screen, it completely changed things for me again for the better because I
Mm.
was only networking with people in Dallas. And then once I had this whole hybrid way of networking, now I can network with people across the country, across the globe. So, a lot of people think that it could be a negative for networking to be working from home or working remote. You could flip it around and it could be a positive. Suddenly you have a chance to
Mm.
network with people that you might not have ever crossed paths with. And so use it as a strength. Now, is in person best? maybe, but through the power of video, brought to you by companies like AT&T, it's just like we're sitting across the table from each other. And so use that as an asset.
Mm, I love that.
Yeah.
What you look for, you find in the stories
Yeah.
you tell yourself.
That's
Yeah,
right. That's right.
that's perfect. That's beautiful. I want to ask you, Rachel, and I don't feel like there's enough narrative around this, and I would love to tap into that beautiful brain of yours on this. This evolution of you as you evolve,
Mhm.
as you evolve your career, as you evolve personally, you are hungry for different things and different things matter. And I've also found that as you evolve, your tribe evolves. Have you found that?
Has my tribe evolved? Yes and no. Yes and no.
Ooh,
Um,
tell me more.
yeah, so I would say that the people that I was closest to as a youngster, I am still closest to. My closest friends are still my closest friends, my sisters who are among my closest friends, and they knew me from way back when. Um, but the key is that these relationships, we've all grown together. We've all evolved together. We've grown
Mm,
up together and we've changed, but all for the better. I think it would be harder to keep some of those relationships if one person or multiple people were stagnant and you were growing, or the opposite, they were growing and you were stagnant. So I would say that in that sense, my tribe has remained the same. And I'm so, so, so grateful because they're, the backbone of who I am. And yet, I've also collected new friendships because I'm at a different point in my life. And
mm.
I'm just now on the other side of active parenting. We're brand new empty nesters because both of our kids are in college. But during those years, you're in the trenches together. You need other parents. You need
Yeah.
other moms and dads to bounce things off of and to raise your kids together. So that is a great season of life. And now I'm in a season where I'm very involved in United Way in a big charitable organization because that kind of thing fills my soul. And that has
Mm.
given me exposure to so many other amazing men and women who have like-minded philanthropic hearts as well. So what's that whole Girl Scout song? Make new friends but keep the old. So,
Yes.
right.
One
So I
is
think
other
that
and the other is gold.
well, there you go. Look at that. Look at
Love
that.
that.
Proud Girl Scouts. Um, so yes, I think it's been a mixture that I have my same core from way
Mm.
back then, and I have new friends that have um, impacted me and grown with me as an adult too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how you talked about the season, right? The season that you're in.
Yes. Yes. And it's okay for the seasons of our lives to change. Some people ask me how it is being an empty nester. And they laugh when I say it's awesome because because it is. It's a new season. It's exciting. It doesn't mean I'm not a little bit wistful and nostalgic of the carpool days and the
Mm,
going to soccer and going to Girl Scout meetings and all that. But it's a new season where the kids are older and our friendships are different. I'm still
mhm.
parenting, but in a whole different way. And I've never lost connection with my husband. We've always had just a beautiful marriage. But now we're at a point where we can lean even more into each other. And that's fun. Oh, can I tell you something fun that maybe
Please.
might inspire some of your listeners? So I realized that Jason and we love to spend time together, but all of our dates were let's go grab a bite to eat. We
Yeah.
would, just eat out a lot. So for 2024, we are doing A to Z dates. We're doing something for every letter of the alphabet. And we are already having so much fun. So we're already doing things. So we took a mozzarella cheese making class. So M for mozzarella. This weekend, you'll never guess what we're doing this weekend. We're taking a curling class. Like the
Yes.
Winter Olympic sport with the broom. Oh my God. I saw it pop up like as an advertisement. I'm like, see for curling. We're
See,
gonna go curling.
oh my God,
And
I
so
love
we're
that.
doing all these fun things. And so again, it's a new season that doesn't have to be sad that we're empty nesters. We're in a season where it can be fun and playful again.
Yeah. How do you think, Rachel, as you talked about you and Jason staying intact, I think what a
Yeah.
gift that is. And that takes intentionality. I mean, that takes awareness and practice. That doesn't just happen. And having the
Yes.
kids and having this this large job. How do you think you were able to stay connected to him throughout your marriage and the juggle of life?
Well, I got a good one. And, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was marry a nerd because they make the best husbands. And I got to tell you, I hit the mother load. And when he listens to this, I'll say, "Yep, I am a nerd." So he's just so great. But we have grown up together. We met when we were 25. Yeah, this year's 25 years of marriage. So we got married when we were 27. And we've grown together. And I remember I said I'm an introvert. He's a
Mm-hmm.
massive extrovert. And so we've
Mm.
learned how to work with each other. That sometimes I'll come home from a hard day of work and I just want to be in my cave, right? I
Yep.
just want to play on my iPad, right? Leave me alone.
Yep.
But I know what he needs. He needs to talk and he needs to, hold my hand, and that, he experiences love in different ways, than I might. And so marriage is about leaning into that and learning what the other person needs. And then likewise for him to know what I need. Okay, let her go into her cave. We'll talk tomorrow. So marriage, they say it takes work, and it does take work, but it doesn't have to be hard work. It's just
Yeah.
being intentional with noticing things and carrying that out.
As you were just talking about you and your honey, it made me flash to Michael and I did this very powerful thing early on in our relationship. I always make him do these things that I hear or see. I'm like, hey, we're gonna take this quiz. We're gonna do this.
Cue for quiz. See, there you go.
Oh my God. You're
Sorry, tell me your
welcome.
story.
You're welcome. So we did the love languages together. Like,
Yes,
what's your love
yes.
language?
Hmm.
And for those of you listening that have a partner and haven't checked it out, please do. It just made me think of it when Rachel, you were talking about how you're an introvert and you recharge
Yes.
differently than Jason, but you've become aware of how each other recharges and needs love. And when Michael and I took this test, it was so surprised. It just made me aware of what Michael needs, which is my attention,
Hmm.
my full attention, and
Quality time.
a
Yep.
quality time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Exactly. And that I need to be aware to give that to him. And what I need are public displays of affection.
Mm.
And it's been very powerful in making sure that we create that space to show up for each other in a way that we receive love.
Yes, yes, it's so good. And I know we got off on this tangent talking about our marriages, but it's also the same thing in the workplace. That let's talk about recognition. Everyone wants
Mm,
recognition differently. Some people are show me the money, right? I don't care if you ever thank me, just put it in my paycheck. Some people are like, please thank me. Other people, please thank me publicly. Please,
yeah.
tell my boss how great I am. Please take me to lunch, spend quality time, right? So it even translates into the workplace about these love languages. I put that in quotes because it's not quite love, but it's showing again that you're in tune, that you're attentive, and meeting their needs.
Yeah, and it just made me flash, Rachel, to the power of did you ask? Like, have you taken a
Hmm.
beat
Right.
to understand how that team member wants to be recognized?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Rachel, I was just thinking about, and I'm sure you hear this too. I know there's listeners out there, and I'm guilty of this too. I find myself saying this sometimes, and I have to be very aware about it. I'm just too busy. I'm so busy. I don't have time to carve out the coffee cheddar. I don't have
Right.
time to do blah 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 blah. What's your advice to the person that says, "Oh, I'd love to. I'm just so busy."
Yeah, well, we're all busy. We are all busy. And believe it or not, my networking is a time saver. And I know that may
Mm.
sound hard to believe, but yes, I go to coffee or lunch with someone just about every single day. But because I have this vast network, I'm able to get things done so quickly, right? When I get stuck, which I get stuck 22 times a day, I know who to call. I know who to ask. I know who to reach out to. So by having this wide network, I'm not spinning my wheels. And I write about this, a lot in the book, that a lot of my networking came out of necessity because I was just clueless in my jobs. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to get opinions, and I can't be that annoying person popping into people's offices all the time. And so I started going to lunch with people and asking them their opinion in a more casual way. And so, believe it or not, it's a time saver to have such a broad network. And then I'll go back to that whole choose your hard, right? It's
Mm.
hard. It's hard to find time for these things, but it's also hard to get stuck and not know what you're doing and feel disconnected. So we make time for the things that are important to us.
Oh, I love that.
And I'll also say, you don't have to do this every day. I go to lunch or coffee just about every day. You can go once a quarter, once a month, once a week, whatever fits your busy schedule. You don't have to go every day.
Yeah. Yeah, back to what feels right to you.
That's
Back
right. That's
back to
right.
it. Rachel, I want to ask you, my friend, this beautiful book, which guys, I'm linking in the show notes to check out. Who who is the perfect reader for you? Who needs to hear these words?
Um, I don't have a perfect reader, and here's why.
Yeah.
That this is the book that I wish I had had at the beginning of my career. That I wish that, somebody had taught me how to network early on. It would have saved me a lot of time, a lot of anxiety. I would have known what to say, what to do, how to cultivate those. So I wish I had heard this at the beginning of my career. And yet, some of my best students, I put that in air quotes, some of my best students that have heard my presentation, heard my speech, read the book, they're well into their careers, or maybe even at the end of their career, and they say, "Oh my gosh, this is valuable," even today, because again, we all want fulfillment, we all want relationships, we all want to feel good at work, and this is the blueprint on how to do that. So I would say people at every phase of their career, not just young professionals.
Mm, thank you. Rachel, how can we stay in contact with you? How can we read your words? How can we follow you? Where can we find you, my friend?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. So Rachel B. Simon, don't forget the B stands for Beth, because there's apparently a lot of Rachel Simons out there. So I don't post all that often, but hopefully when I post, hopefully it's something meaningful. But yeah, that's probably the best way to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Guys, I'm going to link that in the show notes
Awesome.
as well, along with the book. My friend, thank you. Thank you for the courage to share your words. One, because the ripple impact of you sharing your words is so much more powerful than you even know. And two, thank you for creating a space to show up here tonight with such authenticity, such vulnerability, such realness, such you. It is felt through the screen, and that is such a gift. And thank you for being my friend.
Well, right back at you. So thank you for reaching out on LinkedIn. That's
Mm.
where we met. I already told that story, but thank you for doing that, and thank you for creating a safe space for me to share my thoughts and be vulnerable. So thank you so much for having me.